Today, we're diving into one of the most dramatic clashes in all of history. It's a story about a prophecy of destruction and how it nearly wiped out one of the world's greatest civilizations.
So there was this ancient Islamic prophecy, a hadith, that talked about a future conflict with this mysterious group of people from the East. For centuries, nobody really knew what to make of it. But then, in the 13th century, this vague prediction became a horrifying reality.
That's the story we're unpacking today. And to really understand the sheer impact of the storm that was coming, you first have to understand the brilliant, shining world it was about to hit.
Yeah. Before the storm, there was an incredible golden age. The Islamic world, led by the Abbasid Caliphate, was without a doubt the center of the planet.
The Abbasids were the third in a line of massive empires, or caliphates, that had exploded out of Arabia. Now, these empires were ruled by a caliph, a successor to the Prophet Muhammad, and the Abbasids ruled for over 500 years. I mean, just think about that. That is a staggering amount of time for any dynasty to stay in power.
Their capital, Baghdad, was basically the New York or London of its time. It was home to the legendary House of Wisdom, a library that was obsessed with gathering all the world's knowledge. This is where the mathematician Al-Khwarizmi invented algebra. Yeah, algebra. It was also where we get stories we still know today, like Aladdin and Ali Baba from 1001 Nights. This wasn't just some big empire. It was the world's intellectual and cultural superpower. But, even at its absolute peak, the empire was starting to get fragile. The Golden Age was beginning to show some serious cracks from the inside. Okay, so what was going on? Well, there was a major power shift. The Caliph, who was supposed to be the absolute ruler, had become more of a symbolic figurehead. The real power? It was snatched up by his Turkic military generals, the Seljuks. So imagine a president who's just there for show while a general is actually running the country. This split created a ton of instability, and the empire started to break apart. And this internal weakness had massive external consequences. A divided Muslim world just couldn't defend itself. In 1099, European crusaders did what was once unthinkable. They marched in and captured the holy city of Jerusalem, which had been under Muslim rule for over 450 years. Just as things seemed to be at their absolute darkest, two figures emerge on opposite ends of the globe. They were born in the same era, and their lives were about to define the future of the entire world. First, you have Saladin. This guy rises from a humble background to unite all the fractured Muslim states. He becomes Sultan of Egypt, and in a spectacular victory, he takes back Jerusalem from the Crusaders. For the Muslim world, he was a symbol of hope, a total hero.
At the very same time, thousands of miles away on the plains of Mongolia, a boy named Temujin was born into a small, warring tribe. Nobody, and I mean nobody, could have known that he would grow up to become the legendary Genghis Khan. So after uniting all the Mongol tribes and being named Genghis Khan, which means universal ruler, Temujin turns his army outward. And that old prophecy about invaders with flat faces and small eyes, it's about to come true in the most brutal way possible. The Mongol army was like nothing the world had ever seen. Their discipline was just absolute. They organized their soldiers into groups of 10. And here's the rule. If just one man ran away in a battle, the other 9 were immediately executed. There was no such thing as retreat.
And this tells you everything about their leader's mindset. After conquering one city, Genghis Khan supposedly walked into a mosque, climbed the pulpit, and told the terrified survivors, "I am the punishment of God." He genuinely believed his conquest was a divine judgment on a corrupt world. The scale of destruction is honestly hard to wrap your head around. The Khwarezmian Empire, which is modern-day Afghanistan and Central Asia, was the first major Islamic power they ran into. Look at this. Its population went from 2 million people down to just 200,000. That's a 90% drop. Just gone.
The terrifying climax came in 1258. Genghis Khan's grandson, Hulagu, besieged the jewel of the world, Baghdad, and the city fell. The last Abbasid Caliph was killed, ending a 500-year-old dynasty, and the House of Wisdom, with all its priceless knowledge, was burned to the ground. It said the rivers literally ran black with the ink from its books.
After Baghdad, the Mongols looked completely invincible. I mean, the heart of the Islamic world had been ripped out. They just kept pushing west, toward Egypt, the last big Muslim power standing. Their final target, the holy cities of Mecca and Medina.
For the people at the time, this was a terrifying, real question. Many thought the Mongols were literally a sign of the apocalypse, that this was it, the end of the world.
The final stand happened at a place in Palestine called Aim Jalut. And get this, the name translates to the Spring of Goliath. According to tradition, this was the exact spot where David fought the giant Goliath thousands of years earlier. History was about to rhyme.
And in a stunning upset, the much smaller Mamluk army from Egypt, an army made of former slave soldiers, believe it or not, they defeated the Mongols. It was their first major decisive defeat. The myth of their invincibility was shattered, and their push toward Africa and Arabia was stopped for good.
But the story doesn't end there. The Mongols had conquered this huge chunk of the Muslim world, and now they had to actually rule it. What happened next is one of the greatest ironies in all of history.
Over the next few generations, something amazing happened. The descendants of Genghis Khan started adopting the culture and, yes, the religion of the people they'd conquered. You can literally see the change in their names. Mongol names like Hulagu give way to Muslim names like Muhammad and Timur. Eventually, a descendant named Babur would go on to found the incredible Mughal Empire in India. The conquerors were conquered by the very civilization they almost destroyed.
This whole saga brings us to a really important comparison. You have two men, Genghis Khan and the early Caliph Umar. Both built some of the largest empires in world history, but their legacies? Completely different. Genghis Khan is remembered for conquest, for sheer scale and brutality. Umar, on the other hand, is remembered not just for his conquests, but for the systems of justice and administration that held his empire together.
And that leaves us with one final big question. This whole story, from prophecy to destruction and then to conversion, it really forces us to ask, what defines a legacy? Is it just the size of the empire you build, or is it the justice with which you build it?